You are joining us this evening for a presentation called Seed Saving and Seed Libraries, a Radical Idea. And this presentation is being led by Santa Fe Extension Master Gardeners, Christine Salem and Diane Pratt. And we're very excited to have them here with us this evening. So I'm sure many of you know that Pajarito Environmental Education Center is located in Los Alamos, New Mexico. And we are the nonprofit that operates the Los Alamos Nature Center, which is now open again to the public. It's very exciting. We're open for our first week last week. Our open hours are limited, and we are continuing to host most of our talks and our programs on Zoom. Visit our website, peaknature.org, to learn more about visiting the Nature Center and other upcoming events. We are able to offer programming at this time because of our wonderful members and donors. Gigantic shout out to every member and donor out there. Thank you so much for your support. If you're interested in becoming a member or donor, please visit again, peecnature.org, peaknature.org for more information. Tonight's program is part of what we're calling the Growing Together series, which is a collaborative series brought to you by PEEC, Los Alamos Public Library System, and Los Alamos History Museum. Our organizations are hosting programs and events through May. To find out more about the series, visit PEEC's website, peaknature.org. Okay. So before I pass tonight's program over to Christine and Diane, just very briefly, I wanted to introduce them. So Christine is a gardener, has been a gardener for over 40 years, and she moved to Santa Fe from New England, where pretty much everything grows effortlessly, in her words. After killing a shocking number of plants in her high desert garden, Christine became a master gardener in 2010. Her passions are native plants, heritage grains, and seed sovereignty. She also has been host and producer of the Garden Journal on KSFR 101.1 FM since 2013. Garden Journal at, and you can learn more about that at Garden Journal at ksfr.org. And Diane Pratt is a physician and doctor and a master gardener for a number of years as well, and very, very passionate about seed saving. So without further ado, I'm gonna have Christine and Diane start their presentation. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoy.
So I'm Diane Pratt, and I am a mom and a wife and a lifelong learner, and I'm a do-it-yourselfer. I love to cook. And the reason I got into gardening was because I wanted to grow the best and most nutritious and delicious vegetables for my garden, from my garden for my food and for my family and friends. After that, I learned that I could grow things from seed that I couldn't buy at the grocery store. So I started growing from seed, but I bought all my seeds. And about 10 years ago, I started saving my own seeds, but I didn't know very much about it. 5 years ago, I went to a conference held here in Santa Fe by the Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance. It was called a Seed Summit. And I got very excited about saving my seeds there. There I met Bill McDorman, who was at that time the director of Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance. And he is one of my heroes. He's a mentor and he's a friend. Many of the slides tonight and a lot of the content come from Bill. His goal is to inspire 1 million new seed savers. And he thinks this is possible because in the United States, there are 8 million gardeners in this country. So my goal tonight is to inspire you to become one of those 1 million new seed savers. There'll be 3 parts of my presentation. First, I'm going to talk about why I save seeds and why should you. The second one, we're going to do a little activity and a seed identification and talk about different seeds that we can grow here in New Mexico. And third, I'm going to tell you about how to save 5 seeds from 5 plants that are particularly easy to save from. So starting out, why do I save seeds? Well, biodiversity is what can keep our planet going. We know this to survive. The more diverse, the better. Center for Biodiversity says that since 1900, we have lost 96% of plant diversity that was present in 1900. That's pretty scary. And that for me constitutes a crisis. But the opportunity, as we remember, the Chinese symbol for crisis is also opportunity, is seeds. The plants that we had in 1900 had evolved over 10,000 years before. And how did that happen? The gardeners and the farmers 10,000 years ago started growing plants and saving seeds and planting the ones that they liked, and they evolved thousands and thousands of plants, and the diversity was amazing worldwide. So this is an example of all the diversity that we can grow. Lots and lots of vegetables. I'm a vegetable grower. I grow a little bit of flowers, but mostly vegetables. A handful of seeds holds incredible amount of potential. I think it can recreate our diversity and help us to create a sustainable agriculture and feed ourselves. Again, locally adapted seeds that we save ourselves, are the basis of a local food economy. And the best place to start is in your own backyard. You can save seeds from a corn plant that's resistant to worms, from the crispiest cucumber you've got, from the only tomato that survived last summer. If you consistently do this for the next however many years, you will have more tomatoes, the hottest peppers, the most aphid-resistant kale possible. Quite simply, the best garden ever, because you chose which vegetables you liked the most, saved those seeds, planted them the next year, and then the next and the next, and those seeds are the ones that germinate soonest and are the most pest resistant and the tastiest because they're adapted to your garden. So let's check out some seeds. This is a seed identification. I want you to get a piece of paper and a pencil and write down what kind of seeds you think that I'm showing you here. If I were in person, I would have little jars of seeds that you could look at and kind of identify by looking at it. But since we don't have that, we have a picture. This is a picture of a very tiny seed. At the very bottom of the screen, you can see the edge of a quarter. So you can see the edge of the quarter, but you can see these seeds are small and kind of tear-shaped. They're grayish in color. So what do you think they are? Okay, I'm going to go to the next one. Number 2, these seeds, and you can see the quarter this time, they're a little bit bigger, and they are have little spikes on the outside. They're blackish in color. And what do you think these are? Next, these are a little bit bigger, and most people might recognize this seed. These seed are blue, but they have some diversity. You can see some have a little bit of reddish in them, a little bit of, there's one that's yellow, but most of them are blue. Here's seed number 4. You can see again the quarter in the very bottom of the right-hand corner, and these seeds are very small. They are black and they are kind of rod-shaped. What do you think these seeds are? Next, you can see the quarter completely in this pin, and you can see that they're medium-sized seeds and they're very round, and some have kind of a little stem on them. They're brownish in color. How would you identify this seed? Next, we have some more tiny seeds. You see the quarter and the size of these seeds. They're elongated and seem to have kind of a little ridge in the middle of them. They're grayish in color. So how would you identify this seed? Next, these seeds are even a little bit bigger. They're brownish in color, and they seem to have a little ridge in the middle as well. How would you identify this seed? Next, you can't see the quarter here, but these are medium-sized seeds. They are black in color and have kind of a teardrop shape as well. Come to a point at one end, and that's where the radicle will develop, or the little seed can start to develop. How would you identify this seed? These seeds are also pretty common looking. They are, again, you don't see the quarter, but they're fairly big seeds, and they're pretty wrinkled, but you can see some diversity in these seeds as well. Just remember that these seeds came out of my backyard, and they are diverse. The last one. Here's the last seed. This is a very big seed. You can't see the quarter, but it's a big seed. It has a grayish color. And again, you see the pointed end. That's where the seed will start to develop its root. So now we've looked at 10 different seeds from plants that came from my backyard, most of them. And so now we're going to go on to ID. Okay, so number one is a tomato. This tomato is the purple Cherokee tomato, and the seeds are mostly located around the edge. And we're going to learn a little bit more about how to save tomato seeds in the future. But this is an indeterminate tomato. It's been grown in my yard for, this kind of tomato has been grown for at least 10 years. And it's adapted to my yard so that I can harvest these tomatoes throughout the season, and they're very tasty. Number two was a beet seed. That was the one with the little spickles on it. And these are red ball beets. And again, I've grown some kind of beet in my yard for a number of years. As you know, beets are root crops, and they grow best starting in the cool season. Number three, blue corn. This blue corn has a special story because we grew it, we got the seed from the Hopi Indians by way of native seed search. And we grew it out in the garden at the Extension Center here in Santa Fe. And then I was gifted these seeds to grow in my yard. And I've grown them for only 1 year in my yard. But these are the ears of corn. Next, number four was lettuce seeds. That was those little black seeds. This particular one is a leaf lettuce. And it grows, as I said, in little leaves, and it's a common cut again. So I cut it off and eat, and then another little bunch of lettuces will grow up. So they're small seeds. Number five was cilantro. Cilantro is a spice I use in my kitchen, but I also use the fresh herb. Both are favorites of mine. And they grow pretty well here, but both to go to seed pretty easily. So you have to grow a lot of these plants in order to have them on hand a lot. Number 6 was carrot seeds. Those were the little gray seeds. They were pretty small. And these carrots did not come from my yard, but they're awfully pretty. And carrot seeds, the carrot seed is the carrot is a biennial plant. So you plant the seed one year and it doesn't go to seed until the next year when you can collect the seeds. So it's a little bit more challenging to collect carrot seeds. Number 7 was wheat. In particular, that's white Sonoran wheat, which has been grown here in the Southwest for many, many years. It was brought by the missionaries when they came to do conversion in the Southwest, and they brought this wheat for communion bread. And I grow some in my yard. Number 8 was sunflowers. This is the New Mexico sunflower that are growing in my yard as well. I collected those seeds about 2 years ago from my sunflowers here, and they're very easy to collect. Number 9 was peas. These are snap peas, and again, I grew them in my garden last year, and these were the diversity that you saw in those seeds. We'll learn how to save pea seeds a little bit later. And number 10 was squash. Squash have very big seeds, and they're also pretty easy to collect. And you get to eat the fruit or the squash once you're done. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next part of my talk, which is going to be how to save seeds. So we want to save seeds, or the ones that we're going to talk about today are tomato, bean, pea, peppers, and lettuce. All of those plants have, for the most part, what we call perfect flowers. And you can see the flower has petals, but also a closed part of the plant or part of the flower. And in that part, that closed part of the flower, is both the male and the female part of the flower, and they combine to make the seeds. And the whole process happens in that little bulb there. So you don't have to worry about cross-pollination. That's why these kinds of seeds are the easiest. This is a tomato flower, but the other plants we're going to talk about tonight have the same kinds of flower, this perfect flower. So the first one is a pepper. This is a Cubanelle pepper. And you just, to save this seed, you just cut it down the side and you just pick those seeds out. If you can, it's best to leave the pepper on the plant until it's very ripe, almost to the point that you can't eat it because it's too ripe, because that's when the seeds will be most mature, when the pepper is ripe. And here's a picture of the perfect pepper seed color, which is golden. And you can see these seeds are rounder than some of the other seeds we saw. But that golden pepper color is what you're looking for. And that comes when the pepper is most ripe. Next, we're going to talk about collecting bean seeds. And the beans that you eat are the seed, as you well know. So you start with the bean looking like looking green, as over on the left side of this photo. And then as it starts to mature and dry up, it comes to be very brown and dry, and it cracks open. And that's when you can collect the bean seeds. Sometimes the beans still may be green when the first frost comes. So you can actually pull up your plants and knock the soil off and hang them up somewhere to continue to dry until they get that nice dry color, so that the beans will be mature and ready to save. Next, we're going to go for peas. So there's some peas. a different style, a diverse amount of 3 different peas and inside. So you collect peas the same way you do beans. The beans, you wait for them to mature and then collect them when they're dry. And then you can collect these pods, and then over a wintry night, you can shell them and save those seeds. So what I do in my garden is I usually grow my peas and my beans in the same bed. I start the peas on St. Patrick's Day, the 17th of March or somewhere around there. And by the time the vines are up and producing peas, it's hopefully in middle to end of May, but they're done by the middle of June. And that's about the time that I'll want to plant my bean seeds. And they can use the same structure, the trellis, to hold them up. So I plant them about the same place, in a different place than the pea pods. And then when those are ready and dry, I can cut those off and my beans are starting to grow. So if you do harvest lots of pea or bean pods, and there's another picture of the peas. One way to thresh them is actually to dance on them. The threshing of beans is best accomplished during the heat of the day when pods are brittle and easily cracked, but you can do it on a winter night as well. But dancing is kind of fun, and that's something that has been traditional in seed school, is threshing the beans by dancing. Last one we're going to talk, or the next to last one we're going to talk about is lettuce. So lettuce, as you know, grows best in cool weather. And as the weather gets warmer, the lettuce gets more bitter. So about that time, the lettuce will send up a big stalk, and it will have these little flowers on the end. And in the same way, the flowers are, the male and the female parts are in that little pod, and then it bursts open, and the seeds, you can see the seeds on the right over here. They have little wings that they can fly away. So sometimes you have to capture them before they fly away. Here's an up close view of the seeds' wings there. The seeds are down inside the pod there, but that opens up when it's mature and ready to fly away. These pieces of lettuces have gone to seed, but they're in a greenhouse, so we don't have to worry about them flying away. That's convenient, but I use a sack. I put a sack over my lettuce seed, and so that I can collect it instead of having it fly away. The last one we're going to talk about is tomatoes. So with tomatoes, again, you want to get your favorite tomato and let it ripen on the vine till it's almost ready to be not good to eat. Again, very ripe. Then we're going to cut it at the equator, and you're going to squeeze in going around, you're going to squeeze the tomatoes into a jar of some type. This is into a cup. You can see the seeds with the gooey part on, and they're going to squeeze into the cup. You can put as many as you want to in the jars. Then you're going to let them, that gooey part of the seed is to keep it from germinating while it's still inside the tomato. So we got to get that gooey part off so we can save the seed to plant it next year, so it'll germinate. So you squeeze the seeds and the gooey part into a small jar or a large jar, however many seeds you have, and you cover it with some paper towel, or I use some cheesecloth. And over the next 2 to 5 days, it will develop a whitish mold looking. You can see the mold in the 2 pictures over on the side, and that is characteristics. And when it gets to that point, you want to uncover it and winnow it, and we water winnow it by pouring the water out and putting more water in, and then pouring that water out and putting more water in until the seeds are clean, and the good seeds will fall to the bottom as they did in that lower left picture. And then you put them on a paper towel. And let them dry. And then you can put them on a paper plate or a paper towel or a paper tray, and then let them dry out. And then they'll be ready to save. Now, how do we save these seeds or how do we preserve these seeds that we have saved so far? So you want to put them in a cool, dark place. Some people even put them in the refrigerator in jars or bags to keep them cool and dark, in a dark place and dry. So that's the secret. So when you start saving your seeds, you're going to find out you have too many seeds. You can't plant them all. And so you got to share them. And that's what Christine's going to talk about.
Thanks, Diane, and thanks, Kristen, and thank you to PEEC also for the opportunity to talk about our seed saving habits and our seed library that grew out of that. So I think I have to back up a couple. Yeah, so the Santa Fe Extension Master Gardeners launched a project called the Santa Fe Seed Stewards, which has two initiatives. One is the Santa Fe Seed Library. The other one is putting on Seed School. And of course, we haven't been able to put on Seed School in a while, but I'll show you some photos of that as well. So I don't really need to go into this because Diane covered it so well, but I highlighted this point about really the underlying mission behind sharing our seeds through a seed library is that we want to restore the genetic diversity that has gone away over the last 100 or so years because of the farming practices and the decisions that have been made about what is worth saving and why, and what seeds have been allowed to go extinct, more or less. And I always love this quote: if you have seeds, you'll always be rich. Or at least I'd amend that to say you'll be able to feed yourself. Okay, so I think sometimes there's some confusion around the difference between a seed library and a seed bank. And the way I think of it is the seed bank is sort of the backup for making sure that ultimately there is the genetic material that we need to be able to feed ourselves is going to be available. A seed library is a living thing to the extent that we are going to, we're checking out seeds and encouraging our library patrons to return, to grow out the seeds and to save a portion of their crop and return that to the seed library to be shared with, the other patrons. But I'm a big advocate of, if you put your seeds into a seed bank, there's a limit to the lifespan of a seed, especially if it's not being saved correctly, as Diane said, dark, cool, and dry. And so the best way to save a seed really is to grow it. And so that's where the seed library comes in. So my understanding from talking with Kristen ahead of time was that there's a great deal of interest in Los Alamos to start a seed library. So I'm really targeting or, aiming this talk towards how we started ours in Santa Fe and some things to consider in launching a seed library in your community. So ours isn't very old. We launched our seed library in March of 2019, and it was a fortuitous situation because the master gardeners were looking around and saying, how is it that Santa Fe doesn't have a seed library? We were aware that there were in the neighborhood of 500 seed libraries all across the United States, and it's been a pretty popular, I think that includes Canada too, but it's really a growing movement, and it was like, how come we don't have one here? And at the same time, when we were about ready to kind of get going on that, there was an article in the newspaper that a new librarian who had joined the staff in Santa Fe the Santa Fe Library had started a seed library in Albuquerque, which in her previous position, and she was announcing that she was planning on starting a seed library. So we connected with Britta and decided to partner with the public library. And we decided that the best location was our south side location. It's a beautiful facility, and also it's in a part of town that is often referred to as a food desert and sort of an underserved part of our community. And so we felt very strongly that that was the right location for a seed library. And as I said before, the idea is that we loan out packets of seeds. They get quote unquote checked out. They get grown out. Some of the seeds are hopefully saved and returned to the seed library. So what kind of went into that is we went out and asked for seed donations from commercial seed companies to start off. And then we held seed packing sessions where we broke down the seeds into multiple packets that were like plain paper packets. And then the master gardeners helped with that process. We also took on having what we call an info desk at the library on a regular basis so that we could help patrons and answer questions and explain how the seed library works. We also took responsibility for holding educational workshops. I think we held 6 of those in 2019 on a variety of topics, how to build your soil, how to grow from seed, how to save seed, how to set up a drip irrigation system, and maybe and how to grow tomatoes from starts, because tomatoes is such a popular item, of course. And then we also held a plant swap, and we kicked it all off. This is a little out of order, but we kicked it all off with a community event at the library in the middle of March, right at our launch date, with the movie Seed, the Untold Story, which is, if you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to track it down. It's so inspiring. And we had a seed swap, we had kids activities, we had community groups join us and set up tables. And that first year, in 2019, over the course of the whole season, we distributed about 1,000 seed packets to the community. So these are some photos of our seed library in the Southside branch. Here's one of our patrons. Here's the packets that we repackaged our seeds into. What we did, because we were removing the original packaging, which always has a lot of great cultural information about how to grow that particular seed, we always put those packets into a notebook so that when someone grabbed a particular variety of seeds, they could go to the notebook, look up the cultural info, or take a photo of it, and always have that handy. This is a couple photos of our information table with books and explanations about why save a seed, and lots of materials that people could refer to. This is our launch event with a seed swap and kids activities, and it was a very well attended and enjoyable. This is one of our educational workshops. This is Janine Cabasel, who's known around town as the Tomato Lady, and she's teaching a workshop on how to grow and save tomatoes, grow tomatoes from starts because it was too late in the season to talk about growing from seed, but also how to save tomato seeds, as Diane covered in her talk. So it comes around to March 2020. We were ready to do our kickoff event on March 14th. And on that day, or on the day before, the city announced that they were shutting everything down, that all the public buildings would be down, the libraries were being closed effective on March 16th. So clearly we had to regroup. And fortunately, there is a terrific organization. There are several organizations, but it's, and I have it on the resource page at the end of this, called Beat Up. And it's a listserv of that you can participate if you're interested in sharing information with other seed libraries around the country. So we got involved in that right away to find out, well, what are folks doing in the pandemic about maintaining their seeds? And we were kind of freaking out because all of our seeds that we had packed for 2020 were locked up in the library. So the idea we came up with was to start what we called mini or tiny seed libraries. We started April 25th, and we ran out of seeds by May 12th. We had, this says 5, but I think we had 6 or 7 actually locations. And what we did was we just took all of those seeds and we packed small plastic boxes that were waterproof and filled them with a variety of the seeds that we had available. And then we put together instructions on how to, these were self-service locations, and we put together the list of pandemic, safety guidelines, including, social distancing and masking and all those kinds of things. And we also, that year, gave seeds to Tewa Women United, the New Mexico Acequia Association, and one other that I can't think of. Well, we quintupled the number of seeds that we gave out. It went from 1,000 in the first year at a centralized location to 5,000 seed packets were distributed in the 3 weeks that we were in operation. We were also very fortunate. The Santa Fe Reporter named the Santa Fe Seed Library in January, before all this came down with the pandemic, one of the 25 things we love about Santa Fe right now, which was a great honor. So here's some photos of our team. These are the seed boxes. We were doing a lot of driving around and meeting and handing off and refilling and handing off and delivering the boxes. But you can just get an idea of what it involved. Here's the South Branch Library, which was closed. So we placed the boxes outside the locked doors with a sign and with instructions on how to go about selecting your seeds, and we were asking people to limit themselves to 5 packets, so that everybody would have a shot at getting some seeds. And if you recall, last year it was we were really providing a tremendous service, because last year the nurseries were closed for most of the spring. A lot of the commercial online seed companies were out of seeds, or they had to shut down periodically because they were completely overwhelmed with being able to keep up with the orders. And with everybody at home in lockdown, people were wanting to garden. So the interest in gardening and the demand for seeds was through the roof, and that demand couldn't be met the normal way. And we were delighted to be able to offer the seeds through our mini seed library program. And here's another location. This was at the county fairgrounds, out of seeds. Every weekend they'd be out by I had them there Saturday and Sunday, and the seed box was completely empty by the end of the day, Saturday, every weekend. So 2021 season, it's not over till it's over. We're still dealing with this. We decided to continue, of course, the mini seed library program, and we expanded it to 11 locations. In addition to partnering with the public library, also Homegrown New Mexico joined our effort, and they added 2 locations. We added a couple of other locations that covered the county better. So we have one down in Edgewood, one in Pewaukee, and then several throughout. There's one at Reunity Resources. There's a box at all 3 library branches. We have one in El Dorado at a commercial space in El Dorado. We have one in Galisteo, and I don't know what else I'm missing, but there's 11 altogether. Plus, again this year, we donated seeds to Tewa Women United, to a Indigenous youth organization here in Santa Fe who are interested in learning and getting involved in gardening and farming, and again to the Seiki Association. This time, we doubled the packets from last year almost, so 9,000 seed packets were packed, which is quite an undertaking, I have to say. We started earlier this year because we knew what we were doing a little bit more. So our first weekend open of our mini seed library project was weekend of March 6th. We were hoping the seeds will go through May 15th, but I understand that we're going to be out by the first weekend in May. All the 9,000 seed packets will be gone at that point. I was going to touch on our Seed School weekend a little bit, just because that's one of our important educational opportunities. We haven't been able to do it. It has to be done live. It could be done through Zoom, but it's really a powerful live experience. We use a curriculum created by Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance. It's taught by certified seed school teachers. Diane Pratt is one of them. And I think we have 2 or 3 more by now who are all loving going to seed school teacher training. We launched on Friday night showing this seed, The Untold Story. And then we have classroom activities on Saturday, and that includes genetics, botany, breeding, selection, seed saving, how to store, how to share. And then on Sunday we do a field trip and learn how to collect and clean native seeds. And here's a photo of some of the activities. Here we are threshing the bean pods. This is a grain, we're threshing grain using a fan to separate the chaff from the grain seed. Let's see, and then here's, this is the field trip with the Institute for Applied Ecology, learning about how to collect and save native seeds. And let's see, some happy students. And so the other very important aspect of the seed library is we do take the education part of it very seriously. So we have the kickoff event with the film, and then we have workshops on how to grow from seed, how to save seeds, soil building, water-wise irrigation, how to grow tomatoes, and I'm sure we'll be expanding that as soon as we're able to do some more live events. Since my understanding is that there's a lot of interest on the part of you folks who have hung in with us so far in starting a seed library, I think here are just some things to consider while you're trying to figure out what you want to do. So where are you going to get your seeds? And most seed libraries start off asking for donations from commercial seed companies, and many of them are very generous. And we've worked with, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 or even 15 different commercial seed companies. But another option would be to have a community seed garden, where the seed garden, the point of the garden is to grow for seed. So you're not going to harvest the vegetables that grow there. You're going to let stuff go to seed, and you can use that as a demonstration garden to help people learn how to save from seed. And those seeds can then be your recurring stock of seeds for your seed library. And I'm really interested in that and hoping maybe we'll get into doing that in the next year or so. So will the seed library be self-sustaining through people returning seeds, or will you need to replenish each year? And I have to say what I'm hearing from many other seed libraries is that despite their best efforts, a lot of the public it's kind of a big leap at first to get people to save their seeds and bring them back. So that's something you have to be aware of, is how are you going to maintain and replenish your seed stock. Will they be repackaged, or will be treated like a seed swap where people can kind of take their seeds themselves out of a container and label them and put them in their own container? You're going to need to have a big enough committee to take on acquiring seeds, packing seeds, which we probably had about 20 people involved this year in packing seeds. And because of distancing, we ran the seeds over to somebody's house, gave them all the materials, ran over, picked them back up, would go back with more seeds. So we had some dedicated seed packing folks, which we're really grateful for. How are you going to distribute the seeds? Will you be in a centralized location like a library, or in a church, or some other public location? Or will you do something decentralized, or both? I think both is a great way to do it now that we've done it both ways. We really had a great response, and that outreach effort, I think, is very, very effective by having the seeds at a lot of locations. Labeling is important: common name, Latin name, source, and year. And we always like to try to, if someone is sharing seeds with us that they've grown, we like to capture the story that goes with the seed. It might be as simple as, this is the tastiest cantaloupe I've ever had in my life, and I want to share this. Or it might be, this has been in my family for generations, and et cetera, et cetera. Or I found these on the windowsill at my grandmother's house and decided to grow them. There's so much of a cultural connection to growing and saving and sharing seeds, and it's really important to include that element. You clearly want to make the cultural information available. You want to have education and outreach elements. You need a promotion person who's willing to get the word out. You need signage. We just had 9 A-frame signs made up to put at each one of our locations, so that we could put those on the curb or wherever we need to let people know we're open for business. And website, brochures, videos, resources. You need to kind of talk about the idea of, are you going to stick with organic only seeds? There's the question of open pollinated versus, will you distribute hybrids? If you're going to, and then the education part of helping people to understand, if they choose to save seeds and share, for their own purpose, or to return to the library, the issues that will come up with cross-pollination if they aren't aware of how to isolate seeds appropriately, because cross-pollination from wind and insects will turn things into hybrids unintentionally, perhaps. And then there are some legal considerations that I really don't want to go into, but there are more and more seeds protected under patent law, and I put a link in here for a YouTube video that I think provides some mitigating activities that you can do to keep out of trouble if you happen to inadvertently and not willfully grow out or distribute seeds that are under patent to your library patrons. And I'm just learning more about this. This is kind of becoming a hot topic for seed librarians all over the country. Finally, I'll be happy to share this with Kristen, and she can share this with whoever's interested, or you can take a photo of this with your phone if you're still hanging in there. But these are some of the references that I think are really valuable for people who are wanting to get involved in starting a seed library. Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance has a ton of material on seed libraries, but also resources and a network of seed libraries, so that you can find out who's in your area and what they're up to. Upbeat is the listserv that I was referring to, where we were able to connect really effectively and find out what's happening and how we can get seeds out there during a pandemic. The Seed Library Network has open source materials. It's through a Creative Commons agreement, so that you can download materials and adapt them to your own purposes, but it's tremendously generous and a great resource. And I want to mention that just last weekend, there was a big Seed Library Summit with about 1,000 people in attendance, with 11 presentations on all aspects of seed libraries, and it was absolutely fantastic. And those videos are only going to be available for the next couple of weeks, but this link will get you into those videos, and you can watch the ones that interest you. And there's one in particular on the patented seeds, the protected seeds, that is very important. But there's just every aspect is fascinating and really helpful. Our website has a lot of resource material, how-to stuff especially for beginning vegetable gardeners. And I think that's about all I have to say. And I think I've gone over, it's past 8 o'clock. But if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. And thank you all for the opportunity to talk about this project.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, we do have a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to plug our own seed swap really quickly. On May 8th, the History Museum and the Los Alamos Public Library System are combining efforts to have a seedling and a seed swap giveaway. If you're interested in learning more about that, please visit our website. And we're also taking early seed drop-offs so we can have a sort of COVID safe experience. So if you would like to drop off extra seed packets you have, please do so at PEEC during our open hours, which is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And again, you can visit our website to learn more about that. Thank you. So for the questions, Diane, I'm gonna ask you to mute as well, because you might have some juicy information. So is there a website or book you recommend to learn how to save seeds from other less perfect flowered plants, e.g. like squash?
This is Diane, and
Yeah,
I would just plug a book that was written by Bill McDorman. It's called, I think we have that book in our seed steward library, but it's, I actually can't remember. There's also Seed to Seed, which is a more technical book, and it's put out by Seed Savers. Yeah, there's the seed saving from that we have.
Seed saving. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very little book, but there's a ton of information in there about saving many different seeds.
Yeah, this is great. There's also a book called, I think it's called Seed to Seed by Suzanne Ashworth, and it covers many varieties that you'll be interested in saving, and all the details on how to go about that.
Awesome. Very good. Okay. Let me just find them. From Wendy. So the last question was from Haley. This is from Wendy, and she's asking, a friend gave me a scarlet runner beans from his garden. Do I have to do anything special, soak them or anything before planting them?
I would just say, no, you really don't need to, but you can soak them. I wouldn't soak them for a long period of time, maybe less than an hour, but I would just put them in moist earth and make sure that they stay moist until they germinate. So that means you may need to water them regularly, maybe even more than once a day, depending on how much organic matter you have in your soil. A scarlet runner bean is a fairly big bean, and it needs to be, usually the rule of thumb is that you would plant the seed about the same distance under the soil as the seed is long. So some scarlet runner beads are almost an inch long, and you'd plant them down about an inch and keep that soil moist until you see that little shoot coming up.
Okay.
Because the seed is very, very tender at that point.
Christine, did you want to add to that, or is that what you were going to say?
Oh, well, I think in addition to that, Diane, would you recommend using an inoculant?
That would be a good idea to use a bean or pea inoculant, a legume inoculant. You can buy that online. You can buy it here in town at several of the nurseries. And I usually try to get the seed a little moist, and then sprinkle a little inoculant on top of the seed so it will stay on the seed when it goes into the soil, and provide a microbiome for the seed essentially, so that it can get started growing properly. That was a good idea. Thank you.
Awesome. So do you have any, okay, so Haley is asking, are those inoculants organic?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
It's just like, it's just
they're
fungal.
just designed, yeah, it's just designed to really attract the microbes to bring the nutrients to the roots of the new plant.
Is that something that people can buy at most? This is my own like follow-up question. Is that something that people can buy at like their local nursery, or like just off Amazon, or do you have recommendations for where to buy that?
Either, but you, for instance, Bob at Agua Fria Nursery has like a big bag, and you can go in and buy half an ounce or a quarter of an ounce, a very small amount, because a small amount goes a long, long way. And he gets that new every year. So I usually get mine from Bob.
Awesome. Yeah. And I believe that Petrie in Los Alamos also has a similar type of bag. I live in Santa Fe as well, so I've seen the bag. So so let's see, we have a couple more questions, and I know we're before time, or a little over time. So thank you everyone for joining us. If you have to leave, please do. These are just informative follow-ups if you want to stick around. Okay, so recommendations for planting hollyhocks and 4 o'clocks.
I'm mostly a vegetable gardener, and so my experience with hollyhocks is that they grow where they want to.
Yeah,
right. No, they are.
Planted multiple hollyhock plants and seeds, and half of them didn't come up, and the ones that I didn't plant came up and are beautiful. So I'm not very good with hollyhocks.
And that's been my experience too, Diane. They find a crack between my flagstone, and that's where they want to be. And honestly, the 4 o'clocks that I have just self-seeded from a native plant.
Well.
And then boom, there's all of a sudden you have one. So I don't have any experience really putting in a start or growing from seed, I'm afraid.
Yeah, they're pretty hardy plants that they like a lot of hardship in their lives, from what I understand. But I do know that Plants of the Southwest, which is located in both Albuquerque and Santa Fe, is a wealth of information for specifically native plants. They do some vegetable stuff too, but they're just a great resource. So I would recommend checking them out. And then we have one more question, which is, what seeds would benefit from nicking or scarring before planting?
Peas, right? In particular?
Peas, some beans, beans and peas. Basically, seeds that have a very hard coat, very hard and thickened coat are the seeds that would benefit from scarification. And if you have specific seeds that you wonder if you need to do that to, it really won't hurt the seed as long as the seed coat is thick enough.
This is like a very novice question, but why nick and scar? Is that just to give it a little bit more ability to germinate, or?
Right. It's the water has to get inside the seed in order to germinate. And so if the seed coat is very, very thick, then just providing a very small little opening so that the water can get inside the seed to do its job is why you need to do that.
Awesome. Great. Fantastic. And then if anyone has any other questions, here's your chance. But just to give you a little opportunity to put those in, thank you so much, Christine and Diane, for joining us. That was extremely informative, and I'm very excited about joining Making Seed Libraries happen in Los Alamos. So thank you.
Well, we'd love to help if you have questions. I think we should network, all of us
Sure.
in northern New Mexico that have seed libraries. There's one in Espanola. You're going to have one. We have one. There's a couple, I think, in Albuquerque. And maybe we should have our little pod of seed librarians.
I think that's a great idea. I really do. And I think, yes, I will make sure to connect everyone together.
That'd be awesome.
And then for everyone that's tuning in tonight, thank you so much for doing so. And thank you so much for your beautiful questions. We hope that you'll join us for other programs in this Growing Together series. Our next one is on April 29th, which is Seeds from the Garden, led by Program Director of the Traditional Native American Farmers Association, Clayton Brascope. PEEC also has an astronomy talk coming up this Friday, April 23rd at 7 p.m. This week's topic is the birth of the Earth in honor of Earth Day. So you can find out more about those programs and register on peaknature.org. Let me just check if anyone else had any questions. Yes, we have a couple. Okay, so would you use a razor blade to nick or something else?
Razor blade would be fine.
Nice.
Just
Very
something
cool.
with a sharp point. You don't want to make a big cut. It's just a small little nick.
Very cool. And just to let you know, Betsy, she tuned in from Lubbock, Texas, where
Yeah.
Master Gardeners have a seed library as well. So
Awesome.
that's fantastic.
Awesome. That's wonderful.
Thanks for joining us, Betsy. So everyone, thank you so much and have a great evening. And thank you again, Christine and Diane. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge.
Well, thanks for having us. It was great.
Of course. Yeah, super informative. Like, I'm super pumped now.
Yay. Great.
Okay, have a good evening.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.